Weather impact alert days ahead. I'm ABC 10 Chief Meteorologist Monica Woods. We're dealing with fire danger, potential power shutoffs, and record heat as we're wrapping up September and heading into October. Here's a look at those weather impact alerts. And we've got the timing when Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. The impact is going to be hot conditions and gusty north winds. What we need to do is get that go bag ready for the potential for fire evacuations, as well as charging our devices with the potential for those power shutoffs. So a lot to unpack here as we deal with this developing weather situation, tracking wind and heat. Now, the setup is like this into our Monday. We've got this little low feature just to the south of us here. High pressure ridge building in, creating those offshore north winds and east winds that are very dry and warm. They tend to warm up the temperatures and also bring down the humidity. You can see our future wind gusts and the location of where we're going to see the most significant gusts, and that will be west of I-5, north of I-80. So there's that line right here, I-80, there's I-5, and the color contours certainly showcasing where we have the most problematic winds into tomorrow morning, with the timeline really featuring 8, 9, 10 o'clock being the time frame that we'll see the most significant gusts in there. Some isolated areas could be approaching 40 miles per hour. And we've gone several months without any rain. So with a bit of heat as well as those winds, that does create the potential for some more dangerous fire weather. As far as that humidity, now in the morning hours, it's not too bad for Monday. We've got humidity upwards of 70 to almost 85%. But then as those north winds develop, you can see how the humidity starts to come crashing down into some places, the single digits of very dry weather pattern developing for us here. Overnight recoveries very low as well, only about 25 to 30%. Heading into our Tuesday afternoon, we're still looking at humidity only at about 5 to 10% throughout the region. So some very dry conditions around those north winds that really don't recover all too quickly. This will put us into that significant fire potential, mainly for the Sacramento Valley. And if we're really going to fine tune that, it's through the extreme northern part of the valley, more so around Tehama, Shasta counties, and around cities like Redding, Red Bluff, even into Shasta, with the low relative humidity and those dry north winds, which will be, again, most problematic in the north end of the valley. Here's a little bit better depiction of that timeline, where we start off at 6 a.m. on our Monday with winds roughly gusting to about 15 miles per hour. Then it starts to pick up. And I showed you there will be some isolated areas that will be seeing those wind gusts closer to about 30 to almost 35 miles per hour. They will taper off a little bit, but it's already done the damage with lowering humidity. So the potential for those power shutoffs, and this is all around the safety issues with PG&E. You can see we've got Humboldt, Trinity, Shasta, Tehama, Glen, Colusa, and Butte, more on the northern and western side of the valley. As we make our way southward here, we've got Sonoma, Napa, Contra Costa, and Alameda, so kind of around that Diablo range, is potentially going to be dealing with the power shutoffs. Now, it's not the entire counties where you see some of these yellow specklings here. That's where we're looking at those power shutoffs. So it will be very isolated communities where we could see wind gusts up to about 40 miles per hour. But again, widespread as far as the heat, more isolated in terms of the wind. Now, the reason that we're doing this, obviously, is to prevent power pole coming down, sparking a new fire, and with the winds that could spread very quickly. Here's a look at our fire season comparisons as of September 27th. For this year, we've had close to about 1 million acres burned, much more than what we saw last year. Past 2 years have actually been some fairly quiet years, but the 5-year average, you can see we're a little bit below that, where we typically have over about 1 million acres burned and roughly about 6,200 fires. We're a little closer to that 5-year average than, say, where we were last year at this point. Last 2 years, we had some wetting rains and some pretty decent water years that just suppressed some of the higher fire risks. Last significant rain and snow that we've seen in Northern California, May 4th and 5th. It's been several months. We're just on the cusp of starting to see that new water year take shape. But we're about to wrap up this current one here. On Monday, this will be the last day of the water year. It started last October. These are the sheer numbers, the raw numbers here. And then when we look at the departure from normal, basically we've been sitting at the same departure from normal because we typically don't see any rain in June, July, and August. And September is usually a pretty thin month in terms of rain as well. So we're seeing a little bit below average for Sacramento and Redding, as well as Palm Springs. Big numbers along the coast here. And then for South Lake Tahoe, of course, a little bit drier there for the northern part of the Sierra Nevada. Drought monitor on the positive side of things, no change. Week to week, we've been actually status quo here. So our drought severity and coverage index is sitting at 82. As far as the dryness, we're at about 71% of the state covered in abnormally dry conditions. And then moderate drought, just a little over 10.5%. Severe drought covering less than 0.10%. So very, very little in that category. But we kind of need to get things going here because as we turn the page into October, that's the month that we start to see more in the way of rain and less in the way of heat. Now, it's not going to start off like that. Here's a look at our timeline for our weather impact alert Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Tomorrow, we start to see those increasing north winds. It's going to drop humidity down to about 5 to 15% during the day. That's very low. Monday night, though, is when we see those north winds continuing, not terribly gusty, but our overnight recovery for the humidity, when it's usually much higher, goes down to about 25 to 45%. So again, that's going to be on the more dangerous side. Tuesday, those north winds still in play, just really not terribly gusty, but the humidity will be less than 10%. And we're going to add in the potential for record highs and lows. Just a little hint of a wind at night keeps the warmer air closer to the surface, and we could be seeing some very warm lows ahead in the forecast. Wednesday, still dealing with some potential record highs, and that heat risk will continue as well. I showed you the beginning stages of how this will all start to unfold. Here's how much of this starts to build into our Tuesday. That high pressure ridge takes over. It'll be almost directly overhead by the time we get into Tuesday afternoon and almost into our Wednesday, meaning big fall heat in play, not only for California, but really all the way through the desert Southwest as well. A couple of the peak headlines here: elevated fire weather for our Monday, near record heat. That'll be Tuesday into Wednesday, and that major heat risk. So I do want to take it step by step here in terms of our heat. Heat advisory in place Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for parts of the Bay Area. You see this whole area shaded in orange. We're not going to see it for everybody during that duration, but enough that is going to be impacting a lot of people. Monday, we start to see that moderate heat risk developing through the valley, but we've got actually major heat risk already developing into our Monday for parts of the Bay. Extreme heat risk in pockets there, but major heat risk, that's the level that heat affects anyone and everyone without adequate cooling and hydration. It could be one of those situations that our bodies just haven't had to deal with during this part of the season. Possible record temperatures on Tuesday. Here you can see the records as opposed to the forecast, and it's going to be very close. I think we're going to be real close for downtown Sacramento, Stockton, and even Modesto for record-setting temperatures into our Tuesday, possibly Wednesday, but those records start to shift a little bit. Now, 2024 has been one to remember. We have already seen 45 days with 100-plus degree heat, a record setter. Record setter as well for the amount of days at 105-plus degrees. That's 16. And then we've also seen the most 110-plus degree days in any calendar year, that being 5. Now, I'm not anticipating we're going to add any more to these two columns here, but this one, I think we may actually add a couple more there before the week is done. The average that we usually see, only 24, so we're well over that amount. We may nearly double it by the time we get through the end of this week. Temperature benchmarks. I've been hearing a lot of this. When is the last day that we usually see 100-degree heat? Well, that has already passed. That was on September 15th. Now, the latest that we've seen 100-degree heat, the last day that we have a record in the 100s is October 10th for downtown Sacramento. September 27th is usually our average last 95-degree day. Again, in the rearview mirror, our last 90-degree day, October 7th. The latest that we've seen a 90-degree day is October 27th. And I'm telling you, the way that things are starting off here for the month of October, it looks like we're going to go deep into the first week, at least, with highs in the 90s to almost 100. So 100s again back in the forecast for Tuesday and Wednesday. We're going to be kind of flirting right around the upper 90s on Thursday. These low pressure systems that typically start to bring back that onshore flow, bring down the temperatures, just cannot bust through this high pressure ridge. So the storm track to the north of us, as well as the rain. And we're very likely warmer across the entire west into the first full week, almost week and a half of October, and likely drier as well. So in terms of actually getting that rain started, it doesn't look like we're going to hit these benchmarks here with our average first day with at least 10 100ths of an inch of rain, October 7th. Our latest day that we've actually had that first big rain, December 11th. So we can go the next couple of months without seeing a whole lot of rain here. The first day last year with at least 10 100ths of an inch of rain was October 10th. And again, I'm not seeing that in the forecast here. Highs will be close to 80 tomorrow for the Sierra. We're in the 90s for much of the foothills. Usually this time of year, we're thinking apple picking, Apple Hill, pumpkin patches. Then it's just this summer heat just does not want to let go. Right around 80 for San Francisco tomorrow. We're 90s to almost 100 as we start to make our way through the East Bay and the Valley forecast with morning lows in the 50s. I will say the only caveat here is that at least we have that later sunrise, earlier sunset. At least we don't have to deal with the long duration evening heat that we do in the summer. Highs are close to 80 for the midweek forecast for the mountains, and even into the end of the week, we're close to 100 for the foothills Tuesday and Wednesday into Thursday. And for the coast, look at this, 90 on Tuesday before we see a little bit of relief. Our 3-day forecast features the weather impact alert days Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for the aforementioned reasons being fire and heat. And then we've got our 7-day forecast still in the 90s through the upcoming weekend before we start to see those 80s coming into play next week. But again, tracking those record potential setting heat Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. Monday, I think we're going to be shy for most areas, but certainly Tuesday and Wednesday, we're going to be awfully close. We're going to keep these in-depth forecasts going, as well as explainers, weather specials. That's on our ABC10 Plus app. Make sure you download it for free. It's on Apple TV, Roku, Fire TV, live, local, and always on.